Guys, this is just gonna be kind of my thoughts on. I was listening to Preston's like 191st video or whatever on the Olivet Discourse, and it's just always so strange to me. Like, the guy takes time text so literal. He takes time text so literal, but then when it's the apocalyptic language of like Isaiah or whatever, suddenly it's metaphoric, non-literal. Uh, there's nothing physical about it. And then he always appeals to the Hebraic mindset. And, well, when you actually go look at Hebraic mindset, well, what is he actually appealing to? Because you have the Essenes, and the Essenes believe that the body, or they believe that the soul is immortal, but they deny the resurrection of the dead. You can find that in Josephus, right? So it's not that Hebraic mindset that he's appealing to. So what else is there? You got the Sadducees, but they do not believe in the resurrection of the dead, and they also don't believe that the soul is immortal. So, is that what he's trying to reference with the Hebraic mindset? Clearly not. Then what else is there? There's the Pharisees, but if you go and read the Mishnah, if you go read some of Josephus, if you read the Mishnah and the Gemara, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it's the Talmud essentially. If you go and read that stuff, you don't find anywhere in there where they're talking about just a spiritual resurrection. They clearly talk about a physical resurrection, and it's pretty much undeniable. They take verses like in Job and in Isaiah and Ezekiel and some others, like some of the Psalms. They take it literal that there's going to be a real resurrection of the dead, a real, physical rising up from the grave, and that there's going to be a real literal time when the world will be redeemed, and that there will be also a day of judgment. So what Hebraic mindset is actually being appealed to, because clearly there's not one. Because Don has this whole spirit, he doesn't have anything with the physical, but yet we find the Sadducees and the Essenes deny these things, and then you have the Pharisees have a real resurrection and a real day of the Lord and a real judgment day. So, what ancient Hebraic mindset is actually being employed here, because there is none. And I just think it's kind of hilarious, but you got to keep asking these questions. Like, see if you actually go read Paul and you keep in mind that he is a former Pharisee, obviously. Well, obviously, when you read 1 Corinthians 15 and various other stuff, he's teaching a physical resurrection is going to happen. Like, there's no doubt about it. The scholarship is pretty, it's pretty much a fact. It is a fact. He is teaching that. So, all this eisegesis of 1 Corinthians 15 and, eisegeting Philippians 3 and other stuff like that, it's just ridiculous. And then this whole Jesus stripped himself of his divinity or his humanity and the ascension. There's nothing in the Greek to, help you with that. So the whole thing is it's just made up. It really is. And that's very unfortunate for Don, because he's not going to be, it's well, he's tried to build up all this credibility, right? And what happens when you just make stuff up and you just lose all credibility, obviously. But those are kind of my thoughts. And basically what Don has to end up doing, and so does every full preterist, to be honest. Except maybe Ed Stevens. I would say Ed Stevens probably, since he's got this whole historical revisionism stuff going on with his because he believes that there was a real resurrection, right? So he's actually closer to thinking like actual something smart, but he still has a problem with election and some other stuff. But anyways, those are my thoughts. So talk to y'all later. My bad, guys. I actually I forgot to finish my concluding thoughts there. I was looking back at the video and I was like, what? I completely missed what I was trying to say in the last part. So basically the gist is, if you watch my first video there, the gist of it is, if we're going to take the time text as super literal, like it was going to happen in 70 AD, okay? If we're going to take it like that, and we know that, they're teaching a physical resurrection, like Paul teaches and Jesus teaches, and they're teaching a actual judgment, well, we're going to have to prove that, they're going to have to prove that it's not a failed doomsday cult. Because the problem is, if we take the time text in the way that the full preterists want to take it, then we have a real resurrection that has to have taken place, and we also have a real day of judgment that has to have taken place, and that is what it is, because we don't find the Pharisees, we don't find the New Testament writers going, oh man, the Pharisees are a bunch of idiots, they don't know jack squat about anything. Actually, they agree with them quite a bit in the New Testament. They don't completely demonize them in the New Testament. Their main issue with the Pharisees is that the Pharisees don't believe that Jesus is Christ, and they don't believe Jesus is God incarnate. Waiting for this truck to go by. They don't accept that Jesus is Lord, right? And so that's the big issue going on. Oh, and also they believe that, the Christians say that since Jesus is God incarnate, he's going to be the one that brings about the resurrection. That's why Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, the resurrection, right? So basically full preterism, at least from Don's perspective, the CBV view, that's completely absurd. And you're going to have to prove that, if you're honest, if you're going to take the time text that way, you're going to have to prove that the second coming happened, and you're going to have to prove that Jesus literally came down, and you're also going to have to prove that the dead really rose from the dead, and all sorts of other things. And clearly that didn't happen. Clearly it's a failed doomsday cult, if that's the case. If we're to take full preterism and the time text as the full preterists want, it's a failed doomsday cult. It's as simple as that. And, that's unfortunate if that was true, but it's not. It's obviously not true. We have tons and tons of scholarship that goes directly against that. And even those Bible critic scholars, they've been disproven too about that, and there's plenty of scholarship that goes against those people. But Don Preston and some of the others want to always appeal to Schweitzer, and I probably just mispronounced that name, but they always want to appeal to all these atheist Bible critics and all these liberal Bible critics that don't believe what it says, which is ironic, since they always accuse the ex-full preterist of not caring about scripture and all this other junk. But it is what it is. They're, the only one that I think that actually takes these claims seriously is Ed Stevens, because he tries to fix it by revising history and all this other stuff, but at least he's aware of the at least, well, Don's aware of it too. So is a lot of the full preterist people. But, I mean, at least Ed is aware that there's a problem, right? Even though he doesn't really talk about it, because he's too busy trying to debate Don on who's the better heretic on full preterism. But, yeah, those are my concluding thoughts. Like, it is a failed doomsday cult if we take full preterism's time text the way that they do. Because clearly the resurrection happened in 70 AD, right? And, well, obviously it didn't, because the dead did not rise from the grave. We have no documentation whatsoever of that. So you have to come up with some kind of way that the resurrection doesn't apply to everybody, and then somehow come up with all this other absurd stuff like, and Ed Stevens did that. He was like, oh, they got raptured. Like, okay, well, I mean, at least he tried to solve it. He tried to solve the problem. But clearly we have Christians post 70 AD that do not teach this. Like Clement is the first writer, and we have him literally saying that the resurrection of the flesh will take place one day. So those are my concluding thoughts on it. I hope you guys are having a blessed week, and I'm hoping that I'm planning on reading through the Old Testament again, because I've been focusing on the New Testament for about like 2 years now, just solely focusing on that, really. Mostly. I've done a little Old Testament here and there, but I'm going to definitely be going into the Old Testament more soon. But anyways, those are my concluding thoughts, and I just hope that you guys will... I hope that if a full preterist is listening, you start to reconsider some of this stuff, and actually go maybe look up history, and don't take it like that it's all a conspiracy, or be open to the idea that maybe these ancient people were not so stupid, that, maybe they knew what they were talking about, Anyways, that's my thoughts today. So, God bless you guys.